Alright, I got a big spiel planned out for the opening day. Let me put on my booming announcer voice. Welcome! Just kidding. CSL 2022 kicking it off in the group stage. We've got DABU playing against BTB right now. I think we can quickly check the groups. So this is the first match. So DABU BTB, not a lot to show yet, but they are in the group with Shox and Chantel, and then Group B has Johnny, Wap, Guitar, and Sonic. So they're going to play 2 games. One, each will have each color once. So DABU has the white pieces this game. BTB has the black pieces. Let's go back to the beginning quick and recap. So we got e4, King's Pawn opening, and g6 I think is called the modern defense, but I don't know that much about it. But it's like a pretty consistent setup where black can play this setup against basically any white opening, so it's nice to be, you know, if you only want to learn one thing, you can just learn this one thing. And then striking, I think, so pushing to e5 is a bit committal. It prevents black's knight from coming to f6, which looks pretty good. And then c5 is a natural attack to try to... black tries to hit this defender, because if the d4 pawn is gone, then the e5 pawn would fall to the bishop, so makes sense. DABU defends with the knight. I think it's more natural to defend it with the pawn, so that if black's pawn takes, then you can retake with your pawn, and you've still got your 2 solid central pawns. Whereas in the game, after black takes, so if DABU had taken with the knight, then the pawn on e5 is undefended, so he retakes with the queen. But then this development with the knight hits both the pawn and the queen, so pawn is being hit twice. It's currently being defended twice, but he's going to have to put his queen on c3, or okay, e3 to defend it. And now it's blocking in the bishop, so the bishop can only move here. So after this opening flurry, I think probably the theme of this game is going to be... the theme of the game is going to be white has this pawn. It's not isolated technically because the f-pawn could eventually come to support it, but for now it's pretty isolated. It can come under fire by a lot of things. Will white be able to defend it? Otherwise, if black's able to capture it, black will just be up a pawn. And this development move with the knight, normally you want to move your pieces towards the center, but in this case, this was kind of the only square for it. And also it's got 2 nice squares to go here. It can go to f5 and to g4. g4 in particular is a really nice square because it would hit the queen and it would hit the e5 pawn. So let's see. DABU continues his development, getting his bishop out. I think we're going to see probably knight to g4 next. Knight to f5, actually. Okay. Also hitting the queen. I would have liked it at g4, though, because then black would have 3 pieces hitting this pawn, and I think the pawn would fall. In this case, okay, DABU slides the queen back. Wow, they're playing pretty fast. Okay, knight gets out of the way, so now this pawn is defended twice still, and only attacked once, so the pawn is okay, so I think white can take some time to develop some of the other pieces, maybe castle. Castle, okay. Queen develops, hitting here. Also importantly, this is a fork. It's hitting the pawn on e5 and the pawn on c2, which now you can see is being hit twice, and it's only being defended by white once. It's maybe... I don't know if I can resize the... I'll make it a little bit bigger between games. I think you can't actually resize the board during games. If I do that, will it get... No, okay, whatever. Um, so still the pawn's only being hit twice and defended twice, so it's okay. So maybe you want to play c3 here to kick the knight, and then you can bring out your bishop. Okay, just another way. So that intercepts the queen's attack. So now only the knight is hitting it, so that's another way to defend the c2 pawn. Okay, so black looks to want to put the bishop here, taking this nice diagonal. One thing that white could consider taking the knight immediately. Black would have to recapture with a pawn, and then black's king, assuming black castle's king side, will be exposed, because the g file will be semi-open, as they say, with this pawn removed. And also, if black castles queenside in that scenario, these pawns, the c pawn is already gone, and these pawns have both been pushed. So you could, normally a bishop's a little bit better than a knight, but in this case, I think there's some merit to taking the knight, so that you kind of destroy your opponent's pawn structure. It'll be uncomfortable. I think black will be uncomfortable with as far as king safety for the rest of the game. Okay, but instead threatens the rook and defends it. And now we kick the knight away. And we got a nice long game here. The knight moves in, attacking the queen. Queen to the edge of the board. Most pieces on the edge of the board. Okay, and we're caught up to the game now. Good. Okay. Most pieces on the edge of the board are not efficiently or optimally placed. Queen on the edge of the board is usually okay because it still has a lot of potential reach. Whereas if you think about a knight on the edge of the board, it can only hit 4 squares. Whereas like this knight in the center hits 8. So in general, being in the center is advantageous. This may be a blunder. Okay, so white moved bishop to d2, which is attacking the queen. And the queen on the edge of the board here, I think would just have to retreat probably to be safe. So I think if we go back a couple moves, I think stepping the queen back to d7 or maybe d8. Maybe b8 would be another option so that it's still hitting this pawn. But here, now it gets attacked. And this interception, so white has united the rooks. Yeah, so after white captures, this rook is being defended by the other rook. So I think the queen still has to move. Oh. Oof. Oof. And the only option was to go back to d8 here. Oh, that one hurts. Could white have played queen e4 to get either the knight or the rook instead of moving the bishop? Okay, yeah. So at this point, white could play queen to e4, which would hit both the knight and the rook, which is so that's a fork. Excellent eye. Black can defend it just by moving the knight back to c6, so that the knight is defended, and also it would intercept the attack of the queen. But good thought. But I fear that after this oversight, I think the queen has to go back to d8 so that it's still defending the c7 square. After this is going to be tough. Oh, and now this is hanging. En passant, forced. Oh, that's a disqualification. DABU has been disqualified from the CSL for neglecting to en passant. That's a violation. Well, actually, it's only a violation of the anarchy chess rules. Mate in 2. I think this game looked... Oh wait, no, this rook is still here. I'm good at chess. Yeah, that's the way. I think black had, a really nice position. I think black just kind of, after this oversight on this fork, black kind of fell apart. But up until here, I really liked black's position. I think I would take black. What if we go to the analysis board real quick? It still likes... Let's request the computer analysis. But yeah, I think if we step back here, the computer prefers black. I think, yeah, this move here would have been pretty lethal. And then you can take the pawn with either knight. I think that this one looks safest. So then basically black is up a pawn, and you know, white has development, white has the pieces out in the center, but black's position is just really solid because black hasn't really moved a lot of pawns. So like black's up a pawn, and it's not really clear how white's gonna develop a big attack when black's king is really safe like this. Let's see. So it looks like, though, after... So it doesn't like this move. Actually, okay, so... the computer really likes taking the knight to destroy the structure. This is kind of the thing we were talking about. So then after something happens, whatever, if black castles this way, then the G file is open. So you can imagine, you know, you prefer to have the pawn here as an extra line of defense for the king. And if you go this way, then you're going to be open that way. So it's... But yeah, basically after... Okay, so the computer does like queen back to b8, which allows this... So this is really awkward, this knight. It's like... It's difficult to kick it out. It found this nice little gap. But basically there's still some pressure here on this pawn, so black still has that for counterplay. But yeah, after this one getting kicked, and then yeah, after this fork, it's tough. The royal fork, actually the super royal fork. I don't even know if this has a special name, but hitting everything. Okay, I think, and they have started. Oh, they are trucking. Okay. Okay, so this time BTB with the white pieces and DABU with the black pieces. BTB opens with G4. This is very avant-garde style. Okay, so immediately... Oh, okay, so this is a super intriguing position. So immediately, white's bishop is on this really nice diagonal, and it's eyeing b7, and it's saying, "Hey, you're only defending it with your bishop, so be careful." So this check is a fork to win back the c4 pawn, and also black blocks it with the bishop, which is pretty natural because then you're attacking the queen. But now black has to be mindful of this weakness, because now. So black defends it by moving the knight to c6 to block the attack, but like if you're not paying attention and you moved this knight or something, this is going to be pretty bad because you're going to lose the pawn. Rook can't move. Pretty big advantage for white. But this works to block it, and then white steps the queen back to hit this, as well as well, just to hit this, I guess. And then stepping the knight forward, this is so this can fall. White can take the pawn on b7, but then this fork, it's very similar to the same. Oh, and there was a take back situation. I don't know what happened because I wasn't caught up. Probably a misclick, but anyway, it's very similar to the fork we just saw in the last game. I might play a little os after this, but I also might not. Oh, it's a crazy time. So you could go for this pawn, and after the fork, you move the king over, knight takes a1, then queen takes a8. I think that's good for white. That looks pretty good for white. The queen can capture, but your bishop is supporting the queen. I think that's good for white, actually. But BTB decides to shift the queen over instead to prevent the fork. And then black offers a bishop exchange. So if you take, you're probably going to take back with the knight. And then it's kind of just a even normal game. But yeah, f3 is kind of a backwards move for a couple reasons. So it prevents the trade of bishops, which is good if you want to keep your bishop on the board, but it also blocks in your own bishop, so now it's not exerting its influence anymore. So it's like you save your bishop, but you also kind of destroy the whole purpose of having your bishop in the first place. So I think it's probably better to just take the bishop, and then you can play, develop your knight, or play d3, develop your bishop, whatever. It also opens up this line of attack to the king, which looks unpleasant, is the word I would use to describe it. Is this might be a swift match. Yeah, okay, so the bishop is hanging, but also black was threatening queen takes e2 checkmate, because the one escape square for the king is being defended by the black knight. So it's difficult to find a good move. I don't think you could save the bishop. If you save the bishop by running it away, you get checkmated. If you try to defend with the queen just takes the bishop, which is also checkmate. Yeah, looks tough. Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay, so DABU decides to trade queens, but I wonder if he could have taken the bishop. Queen takes e5 is a problem because it's a check against the king and also removing the defender of the d4 knight. But you can defend against that with knight to e6, which actually defends everything, because then if you imagine the queen is on e5, it would be looking at the c7 pawn, but the queen or the knight on e6 would defend it. So you could pick up the bishop and trap the rook, and I'm pretty sure black would be able to defend everything. I don't think there's any counterplay there. But instead goes for the queen trade, which is a little bit more solid approach. But now material is even. So I think... What? I think black is probably better because white can't castle, white's bishop is trapped in. But it's a game. It's definitely a game. This one I don't understand. I'm not sure why you don't just recapture. There's a check here, but it doesn't look too bad. You can just move your king over. I actually think I would have thought about castling long for black, which gets your king out of the center and puts your rook. It's check. You know, you see check, you play check, right? But it's not just a check, it also develops your rook in a single move into the game on this really nice open file. But maybe black just wanted to trade the knights and then play that check. Could be the same idea, but yeah, I'm not Okay, sorry, and we're getting behind a little bit. Okay, now we're caught up. So BTB with the white pieces is now down a knight. But I would say this game's certainly not over yet. There's still enough pieces on the board. DABU won game 1. There was a royal family fork on c7 where DABU hit the king, the queen, and the rook, all with one move. This case, so BTB is down a knight, but there's still a lot of pieces on the board. And normally if there's a lot of pieces on the board, then you can still do... Ooh, nice tactic. Very nice tactic. So it's a fork on the king and the rook. This is a really nice setup. It's a knight sacrifice. So DABU did some reading. Knight takes g4. And then this pawn looks like it's really well defended, right? But if you take the black knight, then all of a sudden this pawn is no longer defended. And we've got the fork here. So now it's harder. Now it's harder for black. All right, we're caught up. So we're going to need a DABU blunder here for BTB to be able to make a comeback. Which is still possible. There's still enough pieces on the board. It's difficult though when black... Here's a great sort of fundamental. If you're winning, if you've got a nice advantage, castle your king. Just get it out of the way. Get it to safety, so then... Because the only way white's going to get back into the game is if your king is exposed and white can play some kind of, you know, forks or pins or some kind of tactics. So if your pieces are all safe... Like, actually, since white doesn't have a queen, it's tough to take advantage of it, but... Like, this bishop is not being defended by anything. This bishop is defended only by the knight. So you can imagine some situations where, like, you know, if the rook were on c1, white could take the knight, and after recapture, then take the bishop. Although you could recapture with the bishop with check. But anyway, it's like this piece is loose. It's nice to sort of have your pieces all defended in general. Like, this knight is defended by a pawn. If you dropped your bishop back to d6, then you'd have this nice solid chain. Less stuff to worry about. And I think we got a potential final hurrah coming. Oh, that's really close. That white had a great move here. Knight to e4, so the knight would be hitting the bishop on c5, and also it's a discovered attack against the bishop on g4 with the rook. Close. So it's this is a fantastic idea, but a little bit of an error. This one allows black to step the bishop back to get it out of harm's way while losing your knight, so that's unfortunate. So this one's tough now. It's tough for BTB. A couple things that it's still not immediately over. Having your rook on the same file as the king there can be some sort of tactics, right? Like white would really like to be able to play e4 so that the bishop could come to h6 and threaten g7, but we can see that the black bishop on c5 is preventing that. And this is getting tough. This bishop is dropping off. Oh no. Okay. But still, if white had moved the king back to c2, which was the only legal king move, then there's a discovered attack. Rook to a3, and the rook would be hitting the bishop while checking the king with this bishop. He doesn't go for b4. I think that's an oversight. Or I guess he was looking at potential discoveries here. Oh! Or he was looking for this. That's a pretty cool checkmate. That's pretty pretty. All of the king's escape squares are covered by a variety of different black pieces, and you can't take the knight because it's pinned by the rook. That's a cute one. That is definitely a cute one. So a bit of a quicker series. I think game 2 kind of spiraled. Let's see. The computer does not like g4. But, oh, I thought that white was going to have a chance. Where was the situation? Oh, this is a really fun tactic. Remember the fork we had last game? If black plays bishop to b4, at first glance you think, oh, that's a dumb move. Black, there's nothing defending this bishop. White can just take it. But then black would have the exact same fork as in the first game. I thought there was a situation... Yeah, here, I think just taking the bishop is better. Yeah, this one, especially because this check is allowed. So now the king is stuck in the center of the board. This is dicey. Oh, I'm an idiot. You actually can save the bishop. This is not checkmate because the knight is still there to defend it. Okay, I'm good at chess. Trust me. But yeah, okay, here. Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier. Queen can take the bishop on g2, and then this looks like a good counterplay, but this defensive move defends everything. And there's... See, like, this kind of position is pretty solid. See how black's pieces are defended by the pawns? Yeah. It's tough to... Like, you can't threaten these pieces too much when they're defended by pawns. But anyway, that was tangent. But yeah, after... And this one... I think this was just kind of a brain fart. I think if BTB recaptures... The game is still probably good for... Pretty good for black. Just because white can't castle, and also white has these isolated pawns and then doubled pawns. So even though the material is equal, it's probably a little bit better position for black, but I think still very playable. But yeah, I think just kind of a brain fart, not recapturing the knight. And then from here on out is kind of tough. Kind of tough to make any headway. So yeah, all right. Opening series concluded. I think we saw, first of all, this is a tough one for BTB, going up against last year's champion in the first round. Pretty tough, but it is a group stage, so he's got 2 more matches. So 2 and 0. But he's got matches with Shox and Chantel, which, although also very high level competitors, both of them, they were not able to topple DABU last year, so most likely BTB will have a little bit better shot with these two. And then DABU off to a good start, hot start. We'll see if anyone can stop him. I think last year, I believe Shox drew a game in the group stage against him. I don't remember if he lost any games. Maybe, did Shox win one game? I don't know, but Shox had some, he had some fire. You can never count out Chantel. And then quick Group B preview. We've got Johnny and WAP. Johnny has been training pretty hard, so we're all excited to see the fruits of his labor. You can never count out WAP. He's kind of the... I would say Sonic is kind of the wild card, where he's got this massive brain, and he's got a long history of strategy games, but he hasn't played too much chess. So sometimes he gets his instincts flowing, and he finds these sick sequences. And then sometimes kind of not.
Let's see, are you still...
guitar.
Oh, he is still streaming. Let me see what he's...
Yeah, I was just doing a quick preview of Group B after recapping the two games.
Yeah. I'm very rusty. You can probably tell.
Yeah. Well, and I just mentioned for the VOD. Actually, I'm going to stop broadcasting for the VOD.